Ladies and gentlemen, Gerald is trapped in the bushes or the basement at Mia Goth's house this weekend for the foreseeable future. I don't really know how long he's going to be gone, so he gave the keys to me. God help us all. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Two Peas on a Podcast, where most of the time we discuss the latest and sometimes greatest movies in the theater. But not today, because as I said up there in the cold open, Gerald not here, except for in our hearts, of course. They're the beautiful baby Gerald hanging out over behind the mountain. We love you, Gerald. We miss you. Gerald will actually be gone from the show for the next couple of weeks, but we're saving Beetlejuice for Gerald for when he comes back. So I had to get a ringer in here, and he was just here when I was on a break. So we grabbed him, and we're like, he's always great. Sometimes he'll drink an entire bottle of lemon juice to try to kill himself for cancer research. We are thrilled, absolutely thrilled, overjoyed to be joined by Stu from the StewWorldOrder podcast. Stu, what's going on, brother?
Hey, it's another glorious day. I see you're wearing your circa 1992 Shawn Michaels sunglasses, and I appreciate that.
These
People
are my
out there in podcast land can't see that, but they are very snazzy. Do they look like they flip up? Do they flip up?
They don't flip. These are so I had to search. I know you're a huge wrestling fan as well. So I have searched because the ones from WWE shop, these are not the sunglasses LA Knight wears anymore. These ones, so I had to search to find these ones on Amazon. These are the ones that he is wearing right now.
Oh, like that's official.
So I mean, like, yeah, the WWE shop ones, they also have his logo splashed across the lens, so you can't wear them functionally. Like, they're useless because you can't see anything out of them. But it's amazing. It's amazing to have you back. It's amazing to see your beautiful face. If anybody's not necessarily familiar with who you are, I know you were just here pretty recent. What did you guys review? I can't remember.
Oh, what did we review? Something, I'm sure.
They reviewed.
We reviewed a movie. We definitely reviewed a movie.
Oh my goodness! So
my functional memory is just abysmal. Like, I do this all the time. I go on John from The Pint. You know John. I've done John. The cancer research with him the last several years. Every time I'm on his show, he tells me, tell us what your next episode is. And you know me, I record months in advance on my show. And every time he tells me, tell us what your next episode is, I go, I don't friggin' know what my next episode is. It's something I recorded 3 or 4 months ago.
The great thing is Stu, when we're texting back and forth, like trying to cement the date and time and topic and everything like that for tonight's episode, and Stu's like, oh, when is this episode going to go up? And like this kind of and I've recorded with you for your show before, so I just know how much in advance you record everything. So I'm like, this coming
this
Wednesday,
week.
like this literally week. Less than a week from now. So,
I would have constant high level anxiety if I did, because a lot of podcasts do. A lot of podcasts record on a week and release the same week. I've been on shows where we've recorded and then that episode was out later that night. I would live in a constant state of terrified anxiety that something would happen and I would end up not getting an episode out for weeks at a time. Like, I'd break my back or my computer would break or something, and I would just not get episodes out for weeks at a time, and then I would just kind of fall off podcasting. So I have to stay 3 to 5 months ahead at all times, or else the anxiety monster just creeps up behind me and puts its hand on my shoulder and won't let go.
Like, it's September right now, so you're already probably banked episodes into 2025 at this point. Am I correct?
You know what? I am just getting ready to do another batch because I am currently recorded up to November 2nd. So my show is of course Stew on the 2s. It comes out 3 times a month on the 2nd, the 12th, and the 22nd. So I've got 2 more episodes to do for November. I'm getting close. I'm within 2 months of where I'm recorded up to, and I'm starting to sweat it. So I think for October, I'm going to do another big batch recording to get me into 2025. Yes.
All right. Well, Stu, it's always such a pleasure to have you on the microphone here. And we bandied back and forth about possible ideas. And I said, why don't we do an old school Peas fans? Gerald, for I think I looked at the timeline on the spreadsheet. It was something like 7 years. This show did top 5 countdowns of everything under the sun: movies, music, television, pop culture, you name it. Gerald counted it down. So Stu and I just decided to go back into the timeline and just raid Gerald's old content. And we're going to do something that Gerald and Dan, our very own producer Dan, did back in September 2020. We are going to do the top 5 movies made before we were born. Now, before we get into the list, how did you find putting it together? How did you find assembling it? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Because you're around the same age that I am. So...
No, I am. I don't know exactly your birth date, but I know you're around the same time I am. Letterboxd makes everything really easy. You can sort everything by how high of a grade you've given it and when it came out and genres and everything else. So it was pretty much, I was born in 1980, so I pretty much set it to, I set it to anything from the 70s or earlier by how high I ranked it, and I had a pretty good selection.
Yeah, this was... I swear to God, I've done this exact thing on another show before. I don't know what show it was. So if you're listening to this out there and you're like, Nick, you did this with me. Like, my memory is, God, like, forget it. I cannot ever remember anything. But Stu, before we take a trip back in time, there's a little something that we do here every once in a while.
Long legs is what I did with Gerald. That just hit me. That just hit me right now while I was sitting here. You were talking about your memory, and I was thinking, I just said this about my own memory. Maybe I can force this. It was long legs, God damn it. That's what I thought.
I was like, what is he doing? Long legs? What the hell is he talking about?
No, that's what it was. It came to me, and I couldn't just sit on it since it came to me. If I'm sure Gerald is listening to this episode, and I don't want him to be that goddamn asshole we recorded 2 months ago, and he's already forgotten. I got you, Gerald. It just took me a minute. You know, the reason I forgot that is because I did long legs also with the pint.
Yep.
So I did 2 different shows on long legs, which is why it didn't come to me right away. That's what I did with Gerald.
Well, before we dive into before we dive into our past, we're going to take a look at something in the future in a segment that we only do every once in a while whenever Gerald can be bothered to find some kind of movie news or movie trailer he wants to talk about. It's a little something that we call Spill the Peas. Oh, no, not the peas! Not the peas! Ah! Ah! Still the greatest sound drop I've ever made, probably.
No, I love that. That's very good.
So I just had you watch this. This set the internet on fire over the past weekend when the first teaser for a Minecraft movie landed on the web. You're literally just off of watching this just before we hit record. I'm gonna put you on the hot seat, Stu. What did you think of it?
It means almost less than nothing to me. I'm one of the 5 people on the planet that has never played Minecraft, so I know what it looks like. I know everything is square, and so I kind of got that in the trailer when they have like an alpaca that's square and a sheep or a goat or something. I kind of understand the idea of it. I accept that this movie's going to make $1 billion because everybody on Earth plays this game but me. But yeah, I don't. Jack Black, I guess, is playing the character that you play as. Is that who Steve is?
Yep.
Like if I load up a game of Minecraft, I play a guy in a blue shirt, and that's Jack Black's character.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know what all the pig monsters are. That's all I don't know. I know there's a scene with Jason Momoa and his hair where you see a creeper behind him. I know the word a creeper. But I feel bad because I've never played any iteration of Minecraft. So I'm just not interested in this, but it's not aimed at me. That doesn't mean I don't think it looks good. I don't understand Jason Momoa's hair.
So I watched this trailer, and a lot of people are dumping on this trailer. I watched this trailer. It's first of all, I love Minecraft. I have played it for at least 10 years at this point.
Okay.
I do a weekly Minecraft series on my YouTube channel right now, which has been absolutely amazing. I've been loving exploring the game again. I kind of took a version off. I took a few months off and then dove back into it. But I love it. I've tens of thousands of hours of my life have gone into Minecraft at this point. I adore it. And this is specifically my love language, Stu. This is being directed by Jared Hess, the director of Napoleon Dynamite. He's making a Minecraft movie. I will watch this. I will spend $11 billion personally watching this movie in the theater over and over again. I think it looks totally off the wall ridiculous, like I know a Jared Hess movie normally would. Jason Momoa's whole entire costume and hair is wild to me. I don't know why those choices were made, but I laughed so much when I first saw it. It has a lot of things that I really recognize from the game, so I'm super. I'm really excited about it. Everybody else can hate this thing. I'm always the guy that gets shit for hating everything. I can't wait for this. It looks so good. I'm gonna watch it so many. You never play Minecraft. You don't care at all. I'm gonna care so much for you.
You're gonna care for me. That's fine. Yeah. You can do that. That's great for you. I understand it's a very fun game. Like, I'm sure it wouldn't have gotten as popular as it is if it wasn't a fun game. I've never played it. It's not because like I'm anti-Minecraft or anything. It's never come across me. It seems like one of those games that's a lot of work. Like, you're telling me you put 10,000 hours into Minecraft. Like, that feels way too much work for me. And if I liked it, I would never do anything but it. Because that's what happens. Like, whenever I start playing a game, I'm here to tell you, I've essentially played Pokemon since it came out. Like, I play a Pokemon game till it's done, then I play another. I have several different Pokemon games that I have 600 to 700 hours in.
Yeah.
And, like, I can't do that with anything besides Pokemon. I just can't. My brain won't accept it.
Yeah. And I love Minecraft because it's so chill, because you can literally, it's whatever you want it to be. You can just chill and just do some casual building. You can join servers with people and have fun interactions. I watch tons of, let me tell you, I watch a lot of Minecraft content, like a lot of Minecraft content creators too. Like this, if you thought this trailer was wacky, like I've seen some stuff, just random Minecraft content over the years that's been way wackier than this trailer was. So I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. So thank you for, I wanted to gush about it because I was excited about it. You just happened to be in the direction of the spray,
in the gush zone.
In the gush zone, yeah. If you're in the first 3 rows, you may get wet. Or maybe. Never mind all of that. So I don't have a sound effect to jump us over into the meat and potatoes of this episode, Stu. Our top 5 movies made before we were born. So, Dan, go ahead and spin that Patreon commercial that we normally spin for spoiler warnings. And when we come back on the other side of it, Stu and I are going to get into our top 5 movies that are older than we are, dinosaurs at this time. Welcome back, everybody, and once again, we're joined by the amazing, the incredible Stu from the StewWorldOrder podcast. Also writes movie reviews over on SoWizard.com. Stu has done it all. Stu has seen it all. When you were talking about LETTERBOXD earlier, like when you made this list, I thought it was really funny because I am not at all up to date on my LETTERBOXD, and I didn't start keeping one until I started doing this show, so it has nothing on it. So if I would have looked up movies older than I am, so yeah, I was born in July 1980, so I don't think there's anything on my LETTERBOXD that would be older than that, unfortunately. So I would have come up with a big fat 0 on there. But since you're the guest, I want to go ahead and pitch it over to you first. We'll start with your number 5 movie from before you were born.
All right, my number 5 movie is, and we covered this, we were both born in 1980. I have 3 movies on my list. If my dates are correct, I have 3 movies on my list from 1978. 1978, wow. Apparently, very good year for cinema. So I feel bad because there are likely to be people listening to this that for them, 1978 is not before they were born, but it sucks to be them. I don't know what to tell you. I'm a little bit younger than you. So I get to count 1978 here. And my number 5 movie is Dawn of the Dead, 1978. I really like this movie. I have a ton of fun with this movie. I almost was considering Night of the Living Dead, some other movies, because my 1 through 4 were like locked in. My top two are two of my absolute favorite movies of all time.
Yep.
3 and 4 were really easy to kind of nail down. And then for 5, I had a bunch of movies floating in like the, I've given them a 4.5 star range. But I ended up going with Dawn of the Dead, which to me has a very special connection because the mall that it was filmed in, I used to go to every single day for lunch. I live like 5 minutes away from that mall.
Wow.
But I just love it. I love George Romero's statement about consumerism and capitalism and everything else, all juxtaposed against these weird blue people zombies that are taking over a mall. And then Tom Savini comes riding in on a motorcycle and starts macheteing zombies. It's so fun. But like I said, it has an actual message that Romero cared about and wanted to put out there. And it's just such a good time. I really enjoyed it. Have you seen?
I have not seen the original in a long time. That's the one that Snyder remade too, isn't it?
Yes, and the remake is actually, for as much as I don't love Snyder, I really enjoy that remake.
Yeah, I remember really enjoying the remake as well. I'm pretty sure I probably watched the original around that time as well. So that's how long it's been even since I've watched the original. Good movie though, as far as I remember. So yeah, great pick. Number 5 for Stu off the board. We're going to get into my number 5 now, and I probably couldn't have made this list without putting some kind of musical on it. And there was a very, very famous musical that came out in the 1950s that was kind of a farewell to the silent film era. Of course, I'm talking about Singin' in the Rain, which, I mean, the incomparable Gene Kelly, Debbie Reynolds, Donald O'Connor. I mean, I absolutely and completely adore this movie. I love how funny this movie is. I love all the pratfalls. I mean, you think about Donald O'Connor, like all the physical comedy that he did. I'm pretty sure he had exhaustion at one point because they did so many takes of him doing Make 'Em Laugh, where he then like had to get checked into a hospital for several days. Gene Hagen is Lena Lamont, who I absolutely do. I can't stand him. I mean, again, the singing, the dancing, the choreography, and like I said, it's a really, really funny movie. It's a really heartfelt movie. And like I said, I really, really love that it also, a lot of movies have kind of tread this ground. I think of like The Artist, which, what was that? That was over a decade ago at this point, wasn't it?
Yeah, The Artist was, I think, 2012, 2013, somewhere in there.
Yeah, where that kind of touched on the same thing as this. Hollywood's definitely revisited this kind of thing over and over of saying goodbye to the silent film era and the era of the talkies coming up, and how some silent film stars tried to cope with, because some of them, they looked really, really good and they could dance and they looked like whatever, but their voices were just really terrible, I guess. So they just couldn't successfully make the transition over to the talking pictures, as it were. But I absolutely, absolutely adore this movie. We're gonna probably use the word iconic a few more times tonight before it's all said and done, because we're going through decades upon decades of film history here just to crank out a top 5. But that is my number 5. Stu, back over to you for your numero cuatro.
Numero cuatro, number 4. Speaking of the silent movie era, this is the oldest movie on my list. We can indirectly thank Julio for this one, because Julio over on my Patreon, I do a thing, it's called the patron request line, where people who are my patrons can tell me what to watch that I haven't seen before, and I'll do a review of it. And he had me watch the Charlie Chaplin movie Modern Times, and that's not what this is, but he had me watch that, and I liked it so much that I then followed it up by watching other Charlie Chaplin movies, leading to my actual number 4 here, which is City Lights.
Okay.
I went into these old-time Charlie Chaplin movies just kind of not knowing what to expect. I kind of thought, like, all right, these will be of their era. They'll be charming, I'm sure, but I didn't expect them to be, to this day, some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. And Modern Times and City Lights, and like I said, City Lights in particular, because it's the one I went with, is so funny. It's just, I sat there and I laughed out loud throughout this movie at what is probably the single greatest physical actor of all time. And I say that having not gotten into Buster Keaton. So I could quite well be wrong here. Maybe I need to get into the General and some other Buster Keaton and see how he compares to Chaplin. But for my money, Chaplin, the greatest physical actor of all time, he's so funny, and just the stories he can tell with his mannerisms and a facial expression, it's so great. And one of the few things about Charlie Chaplin I knew that I had seen in pop culture was the boxing scene from City Lights. Like, I had seen that somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then getting to watch it within the context of the movie, it's so funny. It's, again, like you said, it's so iconic. And I just loved it. I loved City Lights so much.
It's such a huge blank spot for me in terms of things that I know it's a running gag in a lot of our peers in the podcasting community and listeners and stuff that I don't watch anything and I've never seen anything. So I mean, it's no surprise to probably some people listening, Chris Yaney, that I've never seen a Charlie Chaplin flick. It's definitely a huge blind spot for me. One that I really need to get corrected at some point. But City Lights from Charlie Chaplin, Stu's number 4. My number 4 is, it's everybody watches it every single Christmas, Stu. Every single year, families all gathered together. You've opened your presents. You've made some hot cocoa. You've had a good family dinner, and then at some point, someone somewhere throws on Frank Capra's absolute classic, It's a Wonderful Life. It's kind of the movie that will not reaffirm's not the word I want to use. I'll say re-energizes my kind of love for trying to do things to just make my little corner of the world a better place. You know what I mean? Like, it's so important to me to try to make my little corner of the world and make the world somehow better in some small, maybe insignificant way, whatever I can possibly do. And that's the thing that really always resonates to me with this movie is you have, of course, the incomparable Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey in this movie. Just his whole entire life living a really selfless life, living his life for others, trying to do right by other people, having compassion and empathy for other people the whole entire way through. And I mean, it, like, I'm gonna get misty, I'm gonna get weepy talking about it even now, like just thinking about it. But you know, the moment for me is they all bring the money to the house at the end of the movie, and his brother shows up. His brother just won the Medal of Honor because he's like a war hero and all this stuff. And he comes home and he raises a glass to his brother and says, "To my brother George, the richest man in town." It's every time I'm thank God I'm wearing the LA nightshades. I can't see me tear up over here. It's absolute, like I said, it's an absolute holiday classic. I watch it every single year. I adore this movie. I love Jimmy Stewart, like ferociously love him. And it had to be on my list. Like, I thought, and you said when you were making this list, you were like pretty dead set, especially on your top 2 were absolute locks, and then your 3 and 4 were pretty easy. I could shop around, like, no kidding. I could probably shop around. My 2 through 4 could probably, at a different day, if I was making this list, make it into different positions. Mm-hmm. But I knew that this had to be somewhere in my top 5. But like I said, it kind of re-energizes that compassion and that kind of idea in me, where I just want to make the world a better place. And that's what George Bailey's all about as a character, is the embodiment of someone who just lives for other people and just wants to make the world something better. So Stu, over to you for your number 3.
My number 3 is, as you know, over at the StewWorldOrder podcast, we review random comic book movies with our guests. So
I know, Stu.
Sometimes you review the Fan Four Stick movie because the way you pick movies is to put them on a random number generator, and I don't know I don't know why that's your decision making method. It doesn't seem
To be fair, this top 5 was put on because he
This
sent me back
was.
a list. He sent me back a group of ones because I sent him literally Gerald's
Yeah,
7 years.
You sent me 7 years worth of these lists because you were like, oh, there's a bunch of them, and I thought like, all right, I'll look through 20 or 30 of these lists and see. You sent me like 100 some lists.
Oh my god, there's so many.
I picked like somewhere between 5 and 10, and I was like, all right, these are the ones that seem the most fun. And then yeah, you plugged them into the RNG, and we got this list, which is a great list. It's fine.
Yeah, this is not the fan 4 stick of lists. Let's put it that way.
Not even close, no. But
Oh.
we do random comic book movies, and all these years later, all these comic book movies that have come out in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, there's one that is still one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, and it came out before I was born, and it is, of course, Superman the movie. Christopher Reeve putting in one of the greatest performances of all time, regardless of genre. He's arguably the greatest performance in a comic book movie. I think across all barriers, he is one of the greatest performances ever. He goes so hard into that role, and he commits so well to something that you have to remember came out 10 years after the Batman TV show. And the urge to make a Superman show campy and with Zams and pals and everything, it had to be there because they knew that's what people thought of comic book properties. But they made this serious, well, semi-serious, entertaining movie, and Christopher Reeve just hit a home run with it. Just gave us an iconic performance, to use that word once again. I don't know what to say. The music, the score, the John Williams score for this movie is so empowering. You hear it and you're like, I could fly. I could go outside right now as long as I'm listening to this music. I could put my fist up towards the sky and I could do it. Because the music just, it fills you up. It fills you up with so much energy and so much hopefulness. And oh, I love that movie. I love that movie so much. I love the way Reeve plays the differences between Clark and Superman, and he actually plays them as two separate people. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And another reference to Julio and I, for my show, he randomly drew, he's been on my show 3 times. He's randomly drawn the first 3 Superman movies. So in the course of my show, I've done all 3 of the first 3 Superman movies with Julio. So another shout out to him. He knows how much I love this movie, and I know he liked it too.
When's he coming back for Quest for Peace? That's what I want to know.
You know what? Somebody else drew Quest for Peace. I did it with somebody else a while ago. Yeah, somebody else picked part 4. It's not good. I'm glad Julio didn't have to watch that one.
Absolute canon movies masterpiece, baby.
Yes.
Their $17 budget that they had. Oh man, alive!
You will no longer believe a man can fly.
I will believe that he can be suspended in front of a black sheep and jiggled around or something like that. This is so now, because Gerald's not, well, he's here in spirit. He's watching us from beyond the hilltop here. But Gerald's favorite thing to do whenever he does these top 5s is he always rounds it out with his other bottom 5 at the end.
Oh my!
So this is essentially a top 10 show. Gerald just doesn't like to admit it is. Like the whole time, I always made fun of him for it all the time because he's just like, well, I can't do a top 10 show because that's what Paul and Wayne do. And I'm like, first of all, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Second of all,
I love Paul and Wayne with all my heart, and I'm going to be so sad when they're gone. But it's not like they invented top 10s.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But then it would always be like, I'm going to round out my top 5 with the other 5 of the top 10. It's like, whatever. This is my number 9. Just to bury the lead on that one a little bit. I agree with everything that you said. Despite I am the guy that loves Man of Steel on the call. I really, really do. That movie speaks to me a lot, but you said it all about the music. Probably pound for pound for me, one of Williams' best scores, and the man's done a lot of truly great ones. I still think, like, maybe unpopular opinion, maybe not, I still think his Jurassic Park score is probably the best. But that's another top 5 right there, Stu. Top 5 John Williams scores.
Yeah.
Man, I wonder if G ever did that one. Man, ooh, pencil yourself in for that one. If that never happened, that'd be a great countdown. But yeah, you're exactly right. I think that the score for that movie, that main theme is absolutely everything. And the biggest tragedy of Superman the movie for me is what became of the sequel, when Richard Lester reshot half of it, and then they started adding in the really weird cartoonish elements and the throwing the cellophane S and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I really love the Donner cut of Superman 2, even though obviously they had to use like some test footage and different stuff like that to finish it. I really, really love that movie though. The Donner cut, I think it's a phenomenal thing. And as much as I love Russell Crowe in Man of Steel, but Marlon Brando as Jor-El, you can't.
Yeah, from the planet Krypton. We're never going to correct Marlon Brando on how to say that planet's name, that's for sure. Krypton, that's fine. Sure, Marlon Brando, whatever.
Oh, my Lord. So, Superman the movie, I mean, again, absolutely up there on the mountain as far as comic book movies go. Even though the renaissance of comic book movies wouldn't come for decades afterward, you could definitely still see a little bit of its DNA sprinkled in pretty much everything that comic book movies have done since.
Mm-hmm.
So, to one of the fathers of comic book movies, to probably the great grandfather of horror movies, we're due a remake of this Christmas, and I cannot wait for it, from Robert Eggers. I, of course, am talking about 1922's seminal silent movie masterpiece, Nosferatu, German expressionist horror movie. You want to talk about iconic? I'm sorry, Dan. I know it's a trigger word for him. I'm sorry, but like one of the most iconic performances, literally in the history of cinema, with Max Schreck as Count Orlok. It's definitely not Dracula, though. It's Nosferatu. I don't care if the plot is exactly the same. The characters' names are just a little different. It's totally a complete different thing. I mean, the great thing I love about this movie is it's like they lost that case. They lost the case against the Stoker estate, Bram Stoker's estate, but way back in the day. And they were ordered to destroy all copies of this movie. And could you just imagine for a moment if that iconic shot of the shadow of Max Schreck going up the stairs was lost to time forever? Robert Eggers has got some big shoes to fill, in my opinion, for this. I mean, I know this movie's over 100 years old at this point, which is scary, Stu.
Sad. It's sad thinking that, like,
wow,
that's how long movies have been around. That's not how old we are, but think about, like, when we were born, this movie was just 60 years old, and now it's over 100.
And I will. Gerald and I are going to review the new Nosferatu when it comes out here on the show, but if they do not reuse the line, "Your wife has a beautiful neck," in the remake, it will get a 0 out of 10 for me. I don't care. It failed completely. I think everything that probably could possibly be said about Nosferatu has already been said about it. I just absolutely adore it. There is still like this creepy, I mean, it's a silent film, and some of the prints of it that you may watch are not the best or whatever, but even given all of that, there's still such a magic and still such a creepy atmosphere to the entire film that I really, really, really love. And I think a lot of that's down to the performance of Schreck as well as the Count. So that's it. That's my number 3, Nosferatu. Stu, back over to you, getting into the runner-up territory here, buddy.
Getting up into the runner-up territory. I have to say, Nosferatu, very excited about the remake, which is weird because I have found Robert Eggers to be very hit or miss with me. I haven't seen the original Nosferatu. I have a playlist on my Plex server, and it's on there, but I haven't seen it yet. It's one of those ones, like, I keep going into my Plex server, and I'm looking for, like, a nice solid hour-and-a-half movie to watch, and there's always something that just barely edges out Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I keep wanting to watch both of those, but I just keep edging them out by something else. But very excited about the remake. I think the remake looks good, and I think that when Eggers is on, he's very on. Like, I love The Witch. So if it's more like that than it is The Northman, I'm excited about it.
See, I haven't seen The Witch and I haven't seen The Northman, but I did see The Lighthouse.
Oh, see, that's the one I haven't seen.
Which I really loved. The Lighthouse. I thought he did a really good job in that one, and I mean Willem Dafoe is a tour de force in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, it gets weird. It gets real weird, Stu. I can't lie to you. It gets real weird in a couple different ways, and I won't tell you how because I don't want to ruin it for you if you do watch it. But
you know what? I've already listened to the Contrarians episode on it, so I know what happens in it.
Oh, so you've heard about all the mermaid sex and stuff?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, you're fully checked into that.
I'm all prepared. If I do watch The Lighthouse, I know what happens.
It gets weird, my dude. It gets weird, but yes, yeah, it's yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, I am excited. Do yourself a favor though, like I'm the kind of guy that like, well, with because you were telling me before we recorded that you just saw Beetlejuice tonight.
Yes.
Like I have seen part of the original Beetlejuice. I've never seen the whole thing, so I'm not gonna rewatch any of it or watch the original one until after. And same thing with The Crow, although The Crow. But it got lost, unfortunately. Like we just had to miss. We had to miss a couple of weeks because of just different real life circumstances with Gerald and myself. Unfortunately, like life just happens that way. But like I have never seen the original Crow, so I didn't want to watch it until after I watched the remake. And the same thing with Beetlejuice. So like I'm not gonna watch the original until I do that. I don't know how you do whatever. Like if you take that approach to it as well or not, but. Do yourself a favor either before you see it or wait until after you see it and then go back and visit the original after you see the remake. It's a treat, man. It's an absolute treat. Well, you did pick a Charlie Chaplin movie, so you definitely don't hate silent films.
No, not at all.
So, yeah, it's a masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. I love it.
All right, well, I will get into my number 2 here. This movie eternally disappoints me that my wife hates it. Oh. But I try to make her watch it. It's something my family and I reference all the time. It's something, let's face it, we as a society reference all the time because it's one of the most quotable movies of all time. Arguably the greatest pure comedy that's ever been made. You're shaking your head. Do you think you know what it is?
I think so.
Okay, give me a guess. We'll see.
Does it turn 50 literally like this month?
I think so.
Yeah, because it's coming out through the theater here in about a week.
Because I know it came out in 74, so...
Yeah, I'm seeing it in the theater here in about a week.
Okay, yeah. Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
No, never mind.
Oh, no! What was it? What was it?
No, Blazing Saddles is 50.
Oh, Blazing Saddles turns 50 this month. Yeah. I think Holy Grail also came out in 74. That's what was throwing me, so I could be wrong on that.
It may shock you and everybody listening. Never seen it. I have.
Oh, really? Oh, that's sad for you, but that's okay. because I wish it's one of those movies that I constantly wish I could watch again for the first time, and you can do that. I don't know how much of it, like, just pop culture and life is spoiled for you, so I won't get into too many of the great lines or moments or anything, but it's endlessly funny. It's one of those things where it's the stupidest thing you've ever seen until you think about how intelligent the people who made it had to be to think of these incredibly stupid things. It's just genius to me. I love it. I love it so much. I saw it for the first time in high school, and I love it. It's arguably, I think, the funniest thing I've ever seen. I laugh ceaselessly through it, and I try to get my wife to watch it, and she just falls asleep through it, and it's so sad, and she thinks it's obnoxious because, like I said, me and my uncle and my cousin just quoted at each other all the time. But yeah, it's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Conversely, I did just within the last 5 months watch Blazing Saddles for the first time. Also a very good movie, but it doesn't have the... It's not something I've seen like a dozen times in my life, so I couldn't put it on the list. I've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail so many times.
See, now I love going back and watching stuff that I may have missed, unless it's Angels with Dirty Faces. Sorry, Danny. I love going back and checking out old classics and stuff like that. So that definitely gives me another foot on the bum in terms of like. I gotta get myself out there to check it out, because yeah, it's something I've never seen. Blazing Saddles did not make my top. It did not make my top 5. I'll definitely say that. But
Okay.
I do adore that movie. We'll talk about it in a little bit here when we round out our top 10.
Oh, Monty Python and the Holy Grail came out in 1975. I was off by a year.
How
so.
dare you?
I
don't trust anything you say ever.
I apologize profusely.
Oh my goodness gracious! So, from a horror masterpiece, in my number 3, in my number 2 is, I mean, they don't make movies like this anymore, Stu. This is, I mean, one of the, I mean, well, it's my number 2 of all time on my list of movies made before I was born. It tells you how much I absolutely adore it. It is the Sergio Leone masterpiece, Once Upon a Time in the West. Charles Bronson as harmonica, Henry Fonda, and at the time, what was a complete heel turn for him in terms of playing a villain. He was always like the blue-eyed good guy in everything he played, so it was a huge shock to audiences at the time when he turned. And just I think everybody that loves this movie talks about that just masterpiece of an Ennio Morricone score. I just like. Are you a big Western guy? Are you not a big Western guy?
I am the opposite of a big Western guy. It's one of the few genres I'm not a big fan of. I was going to say that when you were done talking about it. Is I've never seen this because I don't watch a lot of Westerns. I've seen like Tombstone. That's my base for Western. Tombstone.
I mean, movies like this, especially old school Westerns, even when they make modern Westerns, they never quite manage to nail the pace of a really old school Western, where it's so deliberately slow and it's very deliberately plotting in a way. But I mean, this movie is just like packed wall to wall with just absolutely incredible performances. And I mean, like I said, the score is one of the most legendary movie scores literally of all time. If you don't ever watch this movie, and if you're not a big Western guy, I'm not going to tell you to watch it, because Stu, it's slow. It's a very, very slow burn. So if you're not a Western guy, I'm not going to tell you to watch it, but at the very least, do yourself a favor and dial up like the theme from this movie. Just Ennio Morricone's theme for this. It's again some of the greatest. We talked about John Williams when you picked Superman. Like you want to talk about some of the most iconic. Dan, I love you so much. I'm sorry. His eyes twitching right now editing this. Just one of the most incredible cinema scores absolutely ever is Ennio Morricone's work in this film. So definitely Once Upon a Time in the West. My number 2. So Stu, that's it. We're here, baby. Are you ready?
We're at number 1. We're at the top of the list.
I'm excited to find out what your number 1 is.
Really? Okay. I think a lot of people who would know me would find this very predictable. And if you do follow me on Letterboxd, you know how your Letterboxd gives you your 4 favorite movies of all time?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
This movie's in there. This movie's in my top 4 movies of all time. So it's number 1 on this list. It's one of the top 4 or 5 movies that I've ever seen in the world. It is the movie I've seen more than any other movie in the world.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how many times I've seen this movie, but I watch it at least once a year, every year when the Halloween season comes around.
Oh.
It is, of course, John Carpenter's Halloween.
Man.
And I'm a big slasher guy, and this is the slasher movie. This was the movie that made slashers more acceptable. This was the movie that made slashers the dominant force of the 1980s. And of course, they were different than this, because when you think about 80s slashers, you think about gore and blood. And 1978's Halloween has virtually no blood. There's a little bit of blood at the beginning, and that's it. But the atmosphere, it's so terrifying and it's so scary. And there is this cloak of Michael Myers' presence over the entire movie. He's constantly in the background, or the car that he's driving is in the background, or you're looking in the background because you think he's going to be there. Mm-hmm. Just, for me, the greatest horror movie ever made, bar none. I think this is one of those, like, if you tell me what's a horror movie everybody in the world needs to watch, it's Halloween. Everybody needs to watch Halloween. And I just think, again, we've talked a lot about scores. John Carpenter's score for this movie is just so potent and one of the most iconic scores of all time
right now.
Yeah. We're just gonna beat him into submission talking about how iconic things are because we're talking about old things. But the mask, the kills in this movie, it's so good. I've actually, even before we've gotten into creepy season, as far back as June and July in this year, I've been sitting around thinking, like, is it too early to just watch Halloween again? I just want to watch Halloween again. I'm a big fan. Greatest horror movie ever made.
See, I've seen Halloween, and I love Halloween. It's everything you said it is. It is an absolutely great movie. Not my favorite Carpenter. That has to go to The Thing because The Thing is The Thing. But I mean, like everything that you said, the atmosphere in this film is so tense and so creepy and so scary because, just like you said, like all of a sudden there's Michael Myers just randomly in the background of a shot, and then he's gone again. Like that is so potent. And I think it's a lot of people talk about supernatural horror and they talk about scary, like sci-fi horror, different things like that, versus this kind of horror, because this is the kind of horror that could happen in your town. This is the kind of horror that could happen in your life, like that you could experience. And I think that for some people, probably me, I'll add myself to that list, for like that adds a little bit of something extra to it as well, because it's not something fantastical. It's just like, you don't know. And I mean, ignore all of the backstory stuff and everything else that came after this and the dismal Rob Zombie remake. But this movie, you don't know why this guy is doing this. He's it's literally just some psycho just stabbing people left, right, center, like no matter what, like just that's what's scary about it too, is the not knowing and that mystery, and I love that mystery about it. I love that mystery about it so much. That's a great number one. That's an absolutely great number one.
Thank you very much. I also think it's a great number one. It's funny how that one works.
Well, you said that, you know, if anybody who really knows you could guess what your number one would be, they'd probably get it immediately. Same exact thing could be said for my number one. It is, a lot of people have made the claim, or a lot of film lists or a lot of film critics and whatnot over the decades have made the argument that this is the greatest film ever made. I will 100% agree with them. It is one of the greatest films ever made. It is Orson Welles' absolute masterpiece, 1941's Citizen Kane. I mean, just from the opening, the News on the March intro, where it plays like it's an old school newsreel that you would used to get into. Imagine going to a movie theater to get your news. Like, that's still such a world that's foreign to me that I can't really picture. I can't really picture. But I mean, yeah, back in the day, like, you know, not a lot of people had TV. So where else are you going to get your news from aside from the radio? But I mean, Orson Welles coming in to, like, the sweetheart deal of sweetheart deals. Like, they just didn't offer things like this at the time in the studio system, of the unparalleled creative control he was given over this film. The Hector Mankiewicz, who co-wrote the film with him, just... I've said so many different... I've talked about this film like 80 million times, and it always, to me, comes back to Wells' performance and his eye as a director. Just absolutely incredible to just watch this larger-than-life figure continue to grow and continue to ascend and continue to accumulate. That's one of the biggest things about Kane throughout the entire film, is accumulate, because he's trying to fill this hole, this void within him that he can never quite fill. He's trying to make people love him by buying them things and all that. And I just love how much that character grows and how much that character, like, tries so hard to fill this void in his life and just becomes more and more isolated and more alone because of it. I many smarter people than me have for the past 80 years talked about how incredible, what a masterpiece this film is, but it really, really is that good. Some people, I know it's not their cup of tea, and I'm curious to know if you've ever seen it or not, but it, like, for me, like, dollar for dollar, absolute stone cold masterpiece. This is in my top 10 of all time. Like,
Okay.
in terms of actual films, like, it is that good to me. I haven't watched it in a little bit either. I haven't watched it in a hot minute. I need to rectify that, because absolute masterpiece. What do you think?
I've never seen it. I spend a lot of time ever since COVID started over 4 years ago at this point. And wow, that feels weird to say that that's that long ago. But I've made it a mission to watch a lot of movies that I had never seen before. I've watched probably more movies in the last 4 years than I watched in the 15 years leading up to those 4 years, because I just watched so many movies now, but I haven't gotten around to Citizen Kane. It's not something that ever really struck me. It's just one of those things. It's like the Mona Lisa to me. Like, I know it exists and it feels like that's enough. Like, I don't need to go to France to see the Mona Lisa. I just know it exists and it's there if I need it. That's how I've always felt about a Citizen Kane, where it's like, well, it's there and people consider it the greatest movie of all time, and that's enough for me. Like, whatever my opinion is on Citizen Kane isn't going to change anything. So I've never gotten around to seeing it.
It's one of those things too, where you know how you'll ask you're a movie podcaster, so I'm sure you experience it a lot, where peers of ours, people that we respect and people that we trust, will review a movie and we automatically get a certain expectation based on what their review is when we're going into it. And I think having that kind of pedigree, that it's been lauded as the best movie of all time for probably the past several decades, if not the number one movie of all time, one of, it's definitely up there in the conversation with everything. It's really tough with expectations like that to go into it and be like, yeah. To that end,
it's the best movie of all time.
I studied the movie in college. When I was in college, that's where I first got introduced to it, and I had that kind of mindset. I was just like, number one, knowing my taste in movies, and the audience that's listening is probably just like, well, Nick hates everything. At least that's what they think. But I first watched this movie and I was so hooked by it. Oh my God, I was so drawn in by it. I mean, you think about all the different tropes in cinema that you can use to explore character and that you can use to explore a plot. Unreliable narrator is such a huge thing in this movie, because it's ostensibly told through flashbacks of different prominent figures in Kane's life, retelling of their encounters with him and retelling of different things. And it literally directly plays like when Susan Alexander, when he builds her this opera house to make her an opera singer. And then we see that from Joe Cotton's character's perspective, but then we see it from her perspective afterward. It's masterpiece. I love it so much. Absolutely a masterpiece. So
is it iconic?
Nah. I just don't want to. I don't want to do that to Dan as all. Although I feel like for this topic, I feel like he'll forgive it. He'll forgive the use of it.
You would hope, because we pounded him with it.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So Stu, if you have any honorables, or if you have a bottom five to round out your top 10, as it were, but remind us of your top five before, and then let us know if you have any honorable mentions, anything like that.
I do. My top five were, again, Dawn of the Dead, the original, City Lights starring Charlie Chaplin, Superman the movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and Halloween 1978, the original. And to round out my top 10, I have 5 honorable mentions, and they are basically from 10 to 6. If I were ranking them that way, it would be Bride of Frankenstein, Jaws, The Exorcist, Seven Samurai, and Modern Times, the other Charlie Chaplin movie.
Wow. All right. So my number 5 again, my top 5 again, excuse me, Singing in the Rain, number 5. Number 4, Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life. Number 3, F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. Number 2, Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. And, of course, my number 1, Orson Welles' masterpiece, Citizen Kane. To round out my top 10, Gerald, we love you. To round up my top 10, my number 10 would have been Fritz Lang's Metropolis, another silent German film. Absolute masterpiece. Love that movie to death. Number 9, Superman the movie, as already mentioned there by Stu. Number 8, another Orson Welles movie with probably the most famous, greatest long shot in cinema history, which is Touch of Evil, where he plays a big, giant, fat detective Charlton Heston in that movie as well. Absolute masterpiece. Yeah, it's like a 5.5 minute long shot to start that movie.
Oh, wow.
One of the greatest in cinema history. Number 7, 12 Angry Men. I mean, just, you talk about single location movies, like movies from just a single setting, literally all takes place in a jury room as they're debating over guilt, and it's just amazing the way that watch these characters just one by one sort of start to kind of understand different things. Amazing. And then number 6, I already talked about it a little bit earlier. It does turn 50 literally. Well, I don't know if it's this month, but it's this year because they're playing it at the theater. And like I said, about a week. It is Mel Brooks. Amazing. I don't understand. People keep saying it's always a movie that you see pops up because everything's woke nowadays, Stu. So people always say, oh, they'd never make this movie today. It's Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles. I think they'd absolutely make this movie today.
Yeah, they're making fun of racists.
Yeah,
what is wrong with making fun of racists?
They're making racists look really, 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 really stupid.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah, I've always said that too. People say, like, there are aspects of the language you probably couldn't get away with, but what the movie is doing is making fun of racists. You could absolutely make that movie and maybe just change some of the over-the-top language, but you could definitely make Blazing Saddles today.
Yeah, I absolutely.
And if you did make Blazing Saddles today, people would bitch about it online, and it's woke, and it's this, and it's that, and people would hate it. Not people, but the wrong kind of people would hate it.
You cast a black man in this Western? What?
There were no actual black people in the West. Learn history.
I got right around it's pumpkin spice season, Stu, as you know, and there was a meme I found when pumpkin spice season started, and it's that scene in Blazing Saddles where Gene Wilder grabs Cleavon Little's character. He's like sneaking up on a Klan meeting or something, and he says, "Fellas, looky here," and then he grabs Cleavon Little and pulls him out. And he's like, "Hey, where the white women at?" But it's a superimposed pumpkin spice latte over Cleavon. Oh my God, such a good movie. What a masterpiece. So Stu, I thought, like, normally at the top of the show, before we review a movie, we will ask our listeners for a question to generate some discussion here. But instead what I decided to do was ask the listeners to provide their top 5 movies from before they were born. And we're going to do that in a segment that we like to call One Big Question.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number 1, how dare you?
How dare you, Stu? So over in the 2Ps fan group, over there on Facebook, get involved if you're not over there. We ask questions over there for the audience to answer every single week. David Powell's going to really, really love my list because most of my list is also his list.
Nice.
He said number 5, Night of the Hunter. Number 4, Singing in the Rain. Number 3, It's a Wonderful Life. Number 2, Once Upon a Time in the West. And his number 1, 12 Angry Men. Amazing, amazing, amazing film. And a guy I think you're familiar with. I think you've heard of him. Host of a little show called the So Wizard Podcast. Just celebrated 10 years of no weeks off podcasting.
That's insane. I don't know how they do it.
Good God in heaven.
I'm the reason I went and saw Beetlejuice today is because I'm recording with them in 2 days to talk Beetlejuice.
So Joey had there was no Neil Breen movies on his list because I knew Neil Breen didn't make any movies before Joey was born. His number 5 was Logan's Run. Number 4, The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Number 3, Gamera versus Guiron. Don't know. Number 2, Enter the Dragon, and number 1, Night of the Living Dead. So there you go.
Okay.
So, there you go. And he actually. The funny thing about this is we have the Discord that, you know, some fans of the show and myself and Gerald are active in periodically. And so they just now, as we're recording, I'm getting Discord notifications in my ear that people are posting in there. It's Gerald just now realizing, after I posted about it like 2 days ago, that this is a topic that he and Dan did like 4 years ago. just now realizing it. God, Gerald, I love you so much. We miss you, buddy. We really, really do. But yes, he and Dan did do this 4 years ago, and he did the stew thing. He pulled up his letterbox list that he made from this episode and posted it up over there in the Discord for me to read off. So I'm going to count his list down 10 through 1.
Okay.
Number 10, Nosferatu, F.W. Murnau's horror classic. Number 9, Singing in the Rain. Gerald, you're going to love my list, buddy. Number 8, Casablanca.
Okay.
Neither one of us mentioned some Casablanca action. I think I've only seen it once.
Yeah, I've only seen it one time, and it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't think I disliked it. I enjoyed it, but it never glued itself to me, I don't think.
Yeah.
Number 7, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Speaking of Gene Wilder, I mean, just one of the most iconic performances. Sorry, God damn, I'm so sorry. One of the most iconic performances of all time. Number 6, My Fair Lady. Number 5, give you some love here, The Exorcist. Absolutely amazing. That movie's so good. That movie is really, really good. Number 4, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Look at Gerald in here.
You know what? When I gave my 10 spot to Bride of Frankenstein, I knew it was going to be one of the old Universal horror movies, and it was a tight race between Creature, The Invisible Man, and Bride of Frankenstein, because I have them all scored at like a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. Number 3, again, another movie that neither one of us really mentioned, but that's okay. We don't have to mention it. We can't mention everything, all right? Number 3 is Psycho, Hitchcock's horror classic.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Great movie, movie. Really, really love that movie. Number 2 was Wizard of Oz. Are you Wizard of Oz guy?
Yeah, Wizard of Oz is good.
I never liked Wizard of Oz. I get it. I get its place. I get why people love it. It's just not. It's not for me. It's just not the kind of movie. Although I really love musicals, like so you'd think I would really, just not my movie. But that's his number 2, and his number 1, to shout out some love back to David Powell. No, not David Powell. To Joey DiCarlo, Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead, very good. I definitely like Dawn better though. Maybe that's just me.
Well, you're the worst then.
They were both filmed around me. I don't know the big barn house where Night of the Living Dead was filmed. I know where the mall is.
Like I said, it literally, the best part about this is it happened in real time on Patreon as we're recording this. Gerald just now realizes, wait, we already did this. Oh, Dan also put Batman 89 on his list because it came out 2 months before he was born. So Batman 89 is on Dan's list. I was thinking about that. Like we didn't get any feedback from any youngins, like any Gen Alphas or like any Gen Zs or anything like that. But there could be people that could have given us feedback, Stu, that like their favorite movie from before they were born is like in the 2000s now.
Yeah. I saw something recently where it was like I was behind a car and it was like, honk if you love the class of 2025. And I started doing the math in my head, and I was like, you weren't even born when I graduated college. That's damn it.
Oh, age is such a funny thing. So before you run away, Stu, I know you're very, very busy out there in the world of podcasting. I used to be the whore in the podcasting community. I'm not the whore anymore. You're the whore now.
I'm the whore.
You're taking my title, because you're everywhere. That's why you're literally. But another great thing about you is you're always game to jump on a microphone, and I always love sharing the microphone with you. Never done it on a show that wasn't yours, though, outside of live stream, of course, which you've always been really keen to take part in over the past several years, which I really appreciate. Although you did try to kill yourself last year. Don't ever do that again.
Yeah, I won't be drinking like 28 ounces of lemon juice again. That'll be the end of that. I just had crickets this year.
Yeah, crickets is fine. You can eat all the crickets you want, bud. No more whole bottles of not even, like the lemon juice concentrate, folks. Like we're talking like that concentrated like green bottle with the yellow cap of like lemon juice. God in heaven, how are you alive? Anyway, Stu, take a few moments in case anybody that's listening again is not familiar. Let them know where they can find you out there and what you've got coming up on the show.
So the podcast is the Stew World Order podcast, where we review random comic book movies. We're still powering through the list of comic movies. November 12th, I can tell you this one. November 12th will be the next episode that Nick is on. We're actually going to record that momentarily here, but it'll be coming out on November 12th, so you can listen to Nick. And aside from the podcast, we, of course, have the website, swoproductions.com. new articles every single weekday. We do movie reviews, first-time watch-throughs of classic TV shows. I, of course, have Pop-Tart Quest whenever they get off their lazy asses and make new flavors, which is, it's been a while, Pop-Tarts. What are you doing? Give me more flavors to review. But a ton of stuff over at StewWorldOrder.com.
Well, Stu, I really, really love you for taking the time to be here. Next week, I think, don't hold me to this, audience, because it's very, very tenuous. It's very up in the air. But next week, I believe the one, the only, the beautiful old man Brad from the Old Man Brad podcast is going to be here to talk about a little something, something. But I don't want to cement that in stone yet. But if you love Brad, or if you're like me, you hate to love Brad, or love to hate Brad, which is it? I don't know. I adore Brad so much. Brad should be my guest next week, and then Gerald should be returning, I believe, the week after that with some Beetlejuice action. And I'm really, really eager. I miss you, buddy. Blow a kiss to Gerald, Stu. Audio audience, he did it. Just in case.
I did.
Video audience, YouTube, you guys will see it, but just in case. Stu, thank you so much for being here. Everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you check out the Facebook fan group. As I said, follow Gerald over on social media, Letterboxd, all that stuff is over in the show notes. You guys know how to do all that kind of stuff. We love you so much. Be kind to yourselves. Do something to make your corner of the world a better place. Follow from the amazing example of Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. Try to do something to make the world a little bit of a better place. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.